Welcome to the chapters 12 and 13 review videos. Chapter 12 is about strategic leadership. Again, there are 12 questions on this, but when I went back and reviewed them, several of the questions you're going to be helped by the governance chapter because it talks about CEO duality and boards of directors. Remember, this is not from our textbook, but I did talk about transformational leadership, and you're going to want to pay to transformational leadership as you review your textbook. We did talk about these are the things that constitute strategic actions. There is a question on how much latitude and discretion senior managers have and the various factors that can influence that. There are questions about managing the resource portfolio and talking about human capital and social capital. So you're going to want to pay particular attention to that. There are several questions also on organizational culture, particularly how cultures change and what is necessary to change them and how they get established in the first place. So this sort of chart is going to be important. There is also a question on ethics. Specifically, remember we talked about in class the story of Boeing and the incident of Ms. Druyan and Mr. Michael Sears and the impact on Boeing, and then what Boeing had to choose to do in the tax write-off. So you're going to want to remember that story we talked about because there's a question that covers that as well. The balanced scorecard is, there's a question on the balanced scorecard. So you're going to want to be familiar with that and understand the basic premise between the balanced scorecard. There's a tendency to simply want to focus on the financial. And these are, if you will, looking in the rear view mirror. These goals, this is where the balance comes in. Attending to these things is like you're looking forward and creating the conditions that should result eventually in strong financial performance, because obviously financial performance is ultimately what it's about in strategic management, but strictly focusing on this will cause you to underinvest in your future, and these are the things that help you invest in your future. Several questions about the top management team. In our class discussion, really tried to hone you in on what it meant to be heterogeneous versus homogeneous. That you want certain things that are common, but then you look at things like knowledge, skills, and experience. Now, the downside of the different knowledge, skills, and experiences is people bring different biases and different perspectives, and that can cause decision-making to be slower and the communication's more difficult to manage, but typically over time, they become better. The decisions are better because they're more thoroughly vetted. There's also a question or two on CEO succession. So you're going to want to read the pros and cons of hiring an insider and an outsider, and also how those insiders and outsiders interact with the board and diversity on the board to make the thing work or not work very well. So, like I said, 12 questions out of chapter 12, but some of them you're going to get a nice double dip when you study the read for chapter 9. You're also going to be preparing for some of the chapter 12 questions. On now to chapter 13. Again, there are 12 questions out of chapter 13 where we're talking about corporate entrepreneurship or strategic entrepreneurship. Not too much on kind of the general introductory thing about entrepreneurship here. We are certainly going to want to pay attention to the section on creative destruction, but I don't want to, I'm trying to think. I'm not sure there's a specific question that comes out of these, but it wouldn't be good to review that. This is very important. This is why companies should be good at strategic entrepreneurship, and then this is why they aren't. And there's a question that taps into those issues. There are several questions that come out of this section where they talk about the different types of innovation and what's involved in the different types of innovation and being able to identify which types of innovation are in play. Don't think there is specifically on these 4 qualities, but there is a question that talks about kind of the mix of cultures that are required, and it talks about the global aspect of collectivism versus individualism and how companies have to manage both of those to be effectively entrepreneurial. Another very important concept is this idea of the two basic approaches to internal innovation, the autonomous or the top-down, the product champions. So you're going to want to read this section carefully. There's probably 2 or 3 questions that address that issue. And then likewise, the cross-functional teams and what it takes to successfully manage these cross-functional teams is also something where there are a couple of questions. As far as the external innovation, you're going to want to be familiar with them and understand the pros and the cons, what people typically want to get out of them, and what are some of the dangers of involving them. So again, 12 total questions. Really, this chapter is a little bit harder to isolate because other than the introductory stuff at the front end, pretty much it's all important. But I've given you an excellent tip-off to the questions that you're going to see. Good luck with your studying. Remember that the exam is on Wednesday, April 22nd, I think is the date. Yeah, the 22nd. Good luck.